Hello drafters, here today with a video which arguably should have been out a little bit before now, but I was coming and hurrying whether to release it or not. Decided to release it, took a little bit longer to develop than originally thought, but it's here now and I'm actually quite proud of it. I've put quite a bit of effort into it, and if you do like it, the like and subscribe is more welcome than ever. It's a complete guide to Ninjutsu, so I'm going through all of the different permutations and all of the different ins and outs of the mechanics that I can think of, describe them, how to play around them, how to play with them, and things like that. If you think I've missed anything out, leave us a comment below, but without any further ado, let's get into Ninjutsu. I'm going to make myself disappear, there we are, because there's a lot of animations in this video and I don't want my ugly face to be getting in the way. So, Ninjutsu, it is a ability which exists when it's in your hand really, and it's got a casting cost, so here it's 3 in a black. Return an unblocked attacker to, you control to your hand, so you're attacking with something, it's not blocked, you return it in your hand, and then put this card on the battlefield tapped and attacking. So that's a little ability it has, and you can see here it's going to be usually, but not always, cheaper than the casting cost, but it means that you can get these cards in above faster than you normally would just by normally casting them, and you can also sneak them in and surprise the opponent a little bit. So let's look a little bit more detail of how this is exactly going to work. So you've got a creature here, you've got a 1/1 flyer, you attack with it. If it's not blocked, you can use the ability from hand, so you're going to pay your 4 mana, and you're going to replace that with the ninjutsu card from your hand. So I've put a little animation in here, but you can see it kind of transforms into, and that's the kind of lore behind it, it transforms into this other creature which you weren't expecting. Obviously that's not quite how it works. I've already talked about a little bit about the mechanics, but that's essentially what happens. And what it means as well is you can play another land just afterwards, and then you play your original creature and get some effects off that. And it's a really good tempo strategy which works when it really comes together. A little bit more in-depth look at how it works with the turn cycle. So down the left hand side here I've got this turn cycle laid out. You go to combat and you enter combat, and then you declare your attacker, so it attacks. At this point it's not actually unblocked. It's not blocked, but it's not unblocked either. It's not until after the declare blocker step, so you go to declare blockers, the opponent chooses whether to block or not. At this point, if they've chosen not to block the creature, it's officially unblocked, and you can use Ninjutsu. So you probably want to use that at the end of blockers step, so at the end of the blocker step, before you go to combat damage. But there are some little ins and outs about when you might not want to do it then, and I'll go through them later in the video. Before I go into them though, I've put the code on the screen for I think it's a pre-release pack, so 6 packs of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty on the screen. Pretty sure that's what this one was, but again, I like to put these in whenever I can, whenever I've got a spare code, say thank you to everybody who supports the channel, and just, you know, if you can use it, use it. If you do manage to use it, let us know. I'd love to see when people actually get to use these, and it also lets people know not to try it themselves in future. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at exactly how it works from a mechanical point of view. And you can see back here on the Shadow Walker that it has, before the colon, which is the bit that tells you the cost, 3 in a black, return attacker you control to your hand, and unblock attacker you control to your hand, and that is part of the cost. That means that's the bit that they can't respond to, the opponent can't respond to. So this has a little unique effect. So if you have a counter spell which can counter ability, what happens is they attack in with a creature. You activate this ability, that ability is countered, but you've already returned something to your hand, so that's not going to work anymore. So what ends up is, if the ability is countered, you've got nothing on the board anymore, you've returned the creature to your hand, but you've not managed to replace it, and you are at a bit of a tempo loss. So that's definitely something to bear in mind, and also something to bear in mind if you're on the other side of the field as well. If you've got something which can counter ability, like the crab in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, but it's not the only card in existence which does this, you can have a stifle effect or something like that as well, then it can really break the tempo up a lot, and it's something to be very mindful of. Another thing to bear in mind is when you can remove a creature in Ninjutsu. So if your opponent attacks, so they'll swing in, you need to remove that creature before you get to block. So if it's removed before you get to blocks, you can't Ninjutsu anymore because it's not going to be unblocked at any time, so you then won't be able to Ninjutsu it in. And if you've got the Shadow Walker, then it's a 6-drop. You often don't want to pay 6 for it, you want to pay 4 for it, and if you only got 4 or 5 mana open, you're not going to be able to cast it, and that's going to be a bit of a blowout as well. There are some tricks you can do around this, so I've got a slightly different setup here. You've got a Moon Circuit Hacker in your hand and also one on the battlefield. You attack with a Moon Circuit Hacker. You Ninjutsu the one in your hand into the battlefield because you want to get the ability where you draw a card without having to discard. The opponent then tries to shock, you can see here with Voltaic Surge that they try to shock your creature, but because it's still unblocked, so you Ninjutsu when it's unblocked, the new creature comes in, that's also still unblocked because there's no blockers in front of it, and you've passed the blocker step. So you can then ninjutsu again, and you can put the original Moon Circuit Hacker in. And that means that the Voltaic Surge fizzles, it goes away, it doesn't actually remove the creature because it doesn't have a valid target. The original target is no longer on the battlefield. And you get in and you can get the effects in like that. So that's quite a nice way to do it. Another way you can take advantage of this a little bit is the following example. So say you've got this Moon Snare Specialist. So it attacks in, it's a 2-2. The opponent doesn't want to block, that makes sense. You can ninjutsu your Moon Circuit Hacker in. So you ninjutsu it in, you hit them for 2, you draw a card. Fantastic. But then at the end of combat, so this is after damage has been dealt, they're still in combat, so your creature is still unblocked even though it's dealt damage. So you can ninjutsu the original card back in again because it's got a reduced cost. That may be the best way to do it. And in this case, you're going to bounce the opponent's creature to the hand, so you get this really, really, really good tempo boost from this little interaction that we've got going on. You don't just get extra effects from ninjas. So you can see here I've got a Virus Beetle. You can play the Virus Beetle. The opponent's got to discard a card. They'll draw the card for their turn, they'll pass the turn, and then if you attack with your Virus Beetle and it's unblocked, you can ninjutsu in another card, you can return the Virus Beetle to your hand, hit them for 5 with the Shadow Blade, and then in your main phase 2, you can, if you've got the mana, you can replay the Virus Beetle and get that enter the battlefield effect coming off again. So these enter the battlefield effects with ninjutsu is really, really good. Virus Beetle's already proven itself to be fantastic in draft because of this, and I think, you know, it's a really, really good way to abuse these things. It's not the only way you can make use of it, but this is quite a good way to do it. Something to be mindful of when you're using ninjutsu, though, is that the auras and equipments don't stay attached to the creature. So if you're attacking in and you return a creature to your hand, the ninjutsu creature effectively replaces it, but the auras and equipment aren't attached to it. So if you've got an aura, it'll just go to the graveyard because it becomes unattached from the original creature and goes to the graveyard. If you've got an equipment, or in the example of Kamigawa where you've got the reconfigure equipment, it just becomes an unattached equipment. If it's a reconfigure equipment, then it becomes a creature again. So that will be separate and it won't be attached to the new creature. So that's definitely something that you want to bear in mind when you're using these effects with ninjutsu. You might not want to put auras on your things that you want to return to your hand, but sometimes you might just have to as well. One last little trick to think about is first strike and double strike damage. So this is a little bit like when we looked at the end of damage. So here you got a double striker on the board. This one happens to have ninjutsu, but it doesn't have to have it. You attack in. You go to the first strike damage. So double strike, you have first strike and normal damage. First strike, you just have first strike damage, but you hit them with the first strike damage. You can then choose to, between first strike and the actual damage, use the ninjutsu ability, so it's still unblocked. You return the double striker to your hand, you put the other creature in, and you get whatever benefits it's going to be. Here it's just another 5 damage. So instead of doing 4 damage, you get to do 7. And that's more damage than you can get either if you just use the Shadow Blade or if you just use the Kitsune. And, you know, that's a really good way to get in the extra damage. And it's something which might just take that extra bit of damage or extra effect that you might want in the really clutch parts of a game. So it was quite a brief video here. I've really enjoyed going through it. If you think I've missed out any tricks with ninjutsu, because there is a lot, I kept thinking of more as I was putting this video together, then definitely let us know in the comments. I've really enjoyed putting this video together. I do like doing these little animations. If you think the animations need work, tell us how to do it. Maybe recommend a program that I can use. But other than that, thanks for watching the video, and I hope to catch you again soon.